tourism is recognised as the third largest sector in Wales after energy and environment. Responsible for creating more than 8% of the overall jobs, this industry contributes approximately 6 billion to the Welsh economy. What is it that Wales offers to its visitors which is distinctive from its neighbouring nations?
It's very different to England, it's very different to Scotland, it's very different to Ireland, and it has its own identity. It has an amazing landscape because it has wilderness, it has mountains, it has beautiful coastline, it has surf beaches, and it also has fantastic local produce. I love the culture here, art, textiles. There's a lot of that in that sort of creative line that I think is very special about Wales.
International visitors are a relatively high-spending market, but historically they have been of lower importance to Wales, accounting for just 8% of all staying trips. Research has shown that the number of overseas visitors to Wales has gone down by 23% in the last decade. So what do international tourists think about this part of the United Kingdom?
Honestly, I didn't know. And I even tried to translate it to Spanish because it is my first language. Because even Scotland's name, Spanish is Escocia. So I didn't know, until I translated, and it's Galos in Spanish. And have never heard about the country.
When you're abroad, most of the information that you receive from United Kingdom in general is about London or big cities in England, and not so much about Scotland or Wales or Northern Ireland, just for small issues, but it's not like a very touristical place that you think on, okay, I'm going to spend a couple of weeks there.
Many people confuse Wales with England, and the farther you go away from the British Isles, the more Wales has to fight for its separate identity.
There are historical reasons why Wales is more closely associated with England than some of other nations within the UK are. Those include things like, the massive Irish diaspora in North America and things like that, who've been very keen to retain and to celebrate their original national identity, their country of origin identity in the New World. That hasn't happened so much for Welsh immigrants.
History is not the only thing that influences people. Some other factors are also responsible for people's perceptions of Wales.
There are also linguistic reasons for it. Sometimes it's as simple as that. In many countries around the world, people refer to Britain as England. So in French, for example, to say that you work in England, je travaille à l'Angleterre, that's so natural to say. The same in German, it's England all the time, whereas Great Britain is a slightly more amorphous kind of concept.
It's clear that for many people, Wales has not got a separate identity. I'm now going to travel across the country to see whether that's the only reason why foreign tourists don't come to Wales. North Wales is very important for the tourism industry. Reports suggest that more than half the visitors would have never come to Wales if it was not for the outdoor activities. Adventure sports such as zip wire, mountain biking and climbing make up 10% of the entire tourism economy. I'm standing here in Cletworth Quarry in North Wales at the Zip World Titans site. This is regarded as Europe's only 4-person zip wire. However, as you see, this place does not seem to be very busy. Let's find out what are the potential problems that might be coming in way of the tourists who want to come to this place.
The only reason we really knew was because of the trains, and I'm into trains, so I came for the trains, but we found so much more.
This £1 million project has been able to generate around 100 jobs in just about 1 month. The organisers are expecting more than 3 million turnover by next year, but they're afraid that the lack of coordination between higher authorities might stop them from achieving their targets.
I believe that each individual company is trying to promote themselves. There is no collective company that takes all of the small individual places throughout the UK as well as North Wales and puts it in a package and sends it out to countries across the world.
It's a short bus ride from the Zipwire site to Betws-y-Coed, a town which has been known for its visual appeal. In 1840, this place was developed as the first artist colony in the whole of Britain. Right now, they're celebrating the Snowdonia Arts Festival, which is to remind the world of the rich history that this town had. Art historian Peter Lord, who wrote a book on the subject 20 years ago, believes that this town is still not exploiting the gift of history to attract international tourists.
And it's really, really frustrating because we're now, 20 years on from that, and I've been talking to people about doing something to make people aware of why Betis is here and the history of the place, and nothing happens. And it's really frustrating because, this is, for the tourist industry, I mean, this should be a gift. I mean, this is wonderful. And it could transform Betis.
For several years, artists came to explore this place and visitors came to see their work. But now this town has lost its roots. Visitors come here, but they're unaware of its historical importance. Photographer Pierino Algeri is here to sell his pictures, but faces some challenges.
This now has been running for maybe 4 or 5 years and hasn't really grown much in that time. And I think it's been difficult to reach the tourist market, to get the message out. We have tried through various media, but most people that come here they just come here for a day out. People I speak to at my stand, not many have specifically come here for the arts festival. Most people didn't know about it.
The organizers had grand plans for this festival, but they say that they could really not do what they aimed for because of the lack of support.
We wanted a budget from the Arts Council that would include professional marketing, and that wasn't forthcoming. So we had to cancel quite a few things and really hone in tightly on these 3 elements. In other words, we couldn't then add to it. I wanted to see lots of pavement artists that I see around in Liverpool festivals and things, and lots of things I could think of, but we just had to, because we're fairly small, we couldn't get that sponsorship.
This B&B is run by Eileen Burtonwood, who heads the Tourism Association in the town. She believes that Visit Wales, the government agency responsible for the development and promotion of tourism, is not investing enough in her area.
Visit Wales are primarily the people who should market this area. That's their job. I think that they do market it. Obviously, there's always room for improvement. They put adverts on the television, and some of them have not really met the mark. If we look at Visit Scotland, Visit England, theirs always seem to be a bit better.
Yeah, you still doing well.
One of the unique selling points about Wales is the castles. Carnarvon Castle in North Wales is famed as one of the most impressive architectural structures in the UK. This magnificent building is also a World Heritage Site. But Tom, who's a tour guide, says that most of his visitors are unaware of the cultural heritage Wales offers.
We could easily stay in Wales instead of going to Chester for an extra day tomorrow. But people don't seem to, the people I have, I don't know what information Australia has on Wales, but they don't ever complain, oh, we would like to have seen more of Wales. We would like to have gone to, because they don't know. So maybe it's the marketing in Australia. I don't know that Wales doesn't sell itself.
There's another very important thing that residents feel is special about Wales, but the world is unaware of it.
I think it's a very nice place to live because people are friendly. They make you feel welcome.
I don't think we're advertising enough. I mean, we have the mountains, we have the sea, we have the beautiful scenery, we have, there's a lot of history, the language, is very important, and I don't really think we're advertising it enough.
200 miles to the south in Pembrokeshire, it's Fish Week. Through this festival, the county is trying to promote food tourism.
I'm standing here at the opening day of the Pembrokeshire Fish Week, and as you see, the weather seems to be spoiling the fun for a lot of people. There's everything here: food, activities, kids, family, everything. But then a lot of people who would have wanted to make it couldn't make it, probably because of the weather.
It is said that the big selling point about the festival is the food. So what is it that visitors like the most?
You know, we were for so many years thought of as a food desert, but Wales produces some fantastic quality food, and people are enjoying coming here where food is part of their experience. You know, we know in Fish Week that a lot of people just love coming and having the fresh food, the fresh fish, and maybe at all levels, you know, whether it's just fish and chips right up to gourmet meals, and just being part of the just the community itself, going to local pubs, participating with fishermen, etc. It's all part of Fish Week, so the food side is very important.
Amongst these people who are enjoying the festival, there are several whose lives are closely knitted with this industry. 1 out of 5 jobs in this area relies on tourism. Research shows that for every £1 that is invested in this festival, it gives a return of more than £20. But despite its importance, it has only managed to attract 5% foreign tourists in the last 15 years.
It's very important to the area because we have a very high unemployment rate in this area, and we need to increase the tourism to enable more jobs to be made for this particular area.
The organisers have been trying hard to advertise this festival this year across all media platforms, but the residents feel unsatisfied with their attempts.
Mostly we've done a lot of online media, we do a lot of we've had international media, we've had national media. It's been in all the major newspapers, from Express, Good Food magazine. So, you know, we may not buy adverts, but our press coverage is huge. So I think perhaps maybe, you know, people, if you're here living here, you may not look to see where it's advertised outside the county.
I certainly think that we aren't marketed enough. We don't have a presence in the world the same as Scotland or Ireland, and I think we need to do something about this because we have a lot to offer. Beautiful scenery, wildlife, and our food as well. We produce some amazing food and cheeses in Wales.
No matter where I travel, people have the same opinion that they aren't marketed enough. When it comes to tourism marketing, Scotland spends 47 million. Britain spends more than 36 million. Ireland spends 34 million, but Wales spends only 7 million, which is actually as much as the city of Glasgow spends alone. The authorities who are responsible for pushing Wales talk of their limitations.
It's very easy to say Wales should be known everywhere in the world. It's very easy to say that, you know, there are fantastic opportunities in country X, Y, Z, and all the way through the alphabet for all these sort of things. The bottom line is, though, that the resources are finite, and so decisions have to be made about where marketing investment is going to be made. And we think that the most important thing is to invest in markets where there's going to be a return for the tourism industry in Wales.
By 2020, 1.5 billion people are expected to have travelled to another country as tourists. But art historian Peter Lord believes that Wales lacks the desired ambition to attract these international tourists.
This lack of ambition is something which really frustrates me about Wales as a whole. And I make the comparison all the time with Scotland. You know, we don't have the confidence, we don't have the aggression, we don't have the will. It's a historical phenomenon. It's a big issue. It's about Wales's status, about Wales's mentality. It's a colonialised country, and it's a colonialised mentality, and it lacks ambition. Wales lacks ambition.
And critics see this lack of ambition reflected in the tourism targets. By 2020, tourism is expected to rise by 51% in England, 86% in Ireland, 18% in Scotland, but only 10% in Wales. For them, the question is whether Wales's targets are ambitious enough.